Practice and review. Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to review everything you've learned so far about meats, vegetables, and common foods like pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more. We'll also practice using demonstrative adjectives, words like este, esa, esos, and estas, to talk about specific foods. This is your chance to test your memory, reinforce what you know, and get more confident with the words and phrases we've been building. Don't worry if you don't remember everything right away. Just try your best and you'll improve with each step. Let's jump in and see how much you remember. How do we say beef? The word for beef is res. How do we say broccoli? The word for broccoli is broccoli. How do we say cabbage? The word for cabbage is repollo. How do we say meat? The word for meat is carne. How do we say carrot? The word for carrot is zanahoria. How do we say celery? The word for celery is apio. How do we say chicken? The word for chicken is pollo. How do we say corn? The word for corn is elote. How do we say fish? The word for fish is pescado. How do we say food? The word for food is comida. How do we say garlic? The word for garlic is ajo. How do we say hamburger? The word for hamburger is hamburguesa. How do we say lamb? The word for lamb is cordero. How do we say lettuce? The word for lettuce is lechuga. How do we say mushroom? The word for mushroom is champiñón. How do we say onion? The word for onion is cebolla. How do we say pasta? The word for pasta is pasta. How do we say pizza? The word for pizza is pizza. How do we say pork? The word for pork is cerdo. How do we say potato? The word for potato is papa. How do we say rice? The word for rice is arroz. How do we say salad? The word for salad is ensalada. How do we say sandwich? The word for sandwich is sandwich. How do we say sausage? The word for sausage is salchicha. How do we say soup? The word for soup is sopa. How do we say steak? The word for steak is bistec. How do we say tomato? The word for tomato is tomate. How do we say vegetables? The word for vegetables is verduras. How do we say this car? Este carro. How do we say this house? Esta casa. How do we say these cars? Estos carros. How do we say these houses? Estas casas. How do we say that car is ugly? Ese carro es feo. How do we say that house belongs to Maria? Esa casa es de María. How do we say those mangoes are expensive? Esos mangos están caros. How do we say those pears are cheap? Esas peras están baratas. How do we say this or this thing without using a noun? Esto. For example, esto es de Juan. This belongs to Juan. How do we say that or that thing without using a noun? Eso. For example, eso es de María. That belongs to María. Well done! In this lesson, you reviewed everything you learned in this module, from meats and vegetables to common foods and dishes, as well as demonstrative adjectives like este, esa, esas, and estas. You practice recognizing the words, building short phrases, and testing your memory. This kind of review is key to making the vocabulary stick and building your confidence step by step. Keep practicing and get ready. In the next lessons, we'll introduce new ingredients, more useful words like con, and even start learning how to say things like mine, yours, and theirs. See you in the next lesson.